Ooh. Gotta set up the old fun. There we go. That should be better. Alright. We're gonna give it a minute. We're gonna jump on. This isn't... Welcome to the replacement for Saturdays with Spike. I'm gonna have to create a new playlist for this. Don't worry, my guests, you will be able to talk in a minute. I'm gonna be listening to chill Minecraft in the background. I'm rendering a video as well, but this is supposed to be a little bit more laid back. So... we're just gonna give it a little bit, let people come by. Let me go ahead and quickly just share the stream for... Did it not get my thumbnail I worked so hard on? Are you kidding me? Oh, I forgot to change it. One moment! I made such a pretty thumbnail for this series as well. There we go. There we go, we've got a high quality thumbnail now. That's all that matters. Although it'll probably never actually update it on YouTube's end. Damn it. Oh well, whatever. Life is life, right? And we're gonna be starting soon. Hey, it actually has the proper picture on Discord. How exciting. Alright. So, I'm just gonna actually go into... Do we have... Oh, we do have a stream chat. Oh, nice! Beautiful. We'll actually use this. I'll read chat as this goes on. I'll read YouTube chat and the Discord chat, and this should be interesting. It's gonna be calm. Very, very different from the normal content. Never really done anything like this, but I figure just talking to people in the community might turn out a little bit interesting. So, let's figure out, first off, what is the permissions on here? Nobody can see it. Alright, let's fix that. And just, no embedded, but that's for a good reason. Alright.
Howdy.
You're not supposed to be talking yet, Etho. What the heck, man? You just stole all my thunder with that howdy. You think just anyone can pull off a howdy? Okay, I guess Etho will be our first guest because he's rudely barged into my room and started slapping me with a frozen fish. Damn it, Etho.
I apologize. You said 6 o'clock. I came here late accidentally.
Alright.
You know,
it's okay. You're gonna take the place of some other lame person like Silly who needs their opinions. Am I right?
Hello.
Alright.
Imagine giving Silly a platform.
So, Etho, today we're gonna be talking about, you know, unimportant things like the meaning of life. So,
okay.
I hope you're prepared to be insightful. Oh,
Yeah,
hey effing B. Wow, that's so rude, Angel Reed. I'm trying to talk about the meaning of life. 42. That's a good answer already from chat.
If you cry, I don't blame you. That was very mean of him.
Thank you, Minecraft Boy 574 for the $5 Canadian. Even though your country is slightly lamer, your money's just as cool. I'm joking.
Wow.
Alright, so we're gonna start off with Etho. Etho, give it to me straight, man. What is the meaning of life in Etho's world?
In my world, well, I think that there's some issues with putting a definitive meaning towards life. I think that, you know, there are many different ways that people attempt to make a meaning out of their life. And some people go through life feeling completely meaningless, even though they see like some sort of grander idea of what it means to just be alive. Because of course there's theological or ideological ways of explaining what the meaning of life is. But I think that really what the meaning of life comes out of, even if there is a definitive answer, can come out of what we as individuals find to be the most fulfilling usage of our life. Because we only have so long to actually be alive and do things with our life. So if we find methods and ways of really just cherishing and enjoying whatever life we have, doing what we love, spending it with who we love, then you've really done with life what life is supposed to be used for.
Wow, that was very profound. And when Dan comes on and says like beans or something, it's gonna be quite the contrast. Wow, I'm gonna say I really do agree with like 90% of that. Well, more like 100% of it. I do agree. I think a lot of the time people are looking for something, and if you keep looking for something, it's kind of a catch-22. Sometimes the harder you look for something, the harder it is to find it. You know.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Because if you're living your entire life and you're like, where is the purpose? What is the meaning? Then you're kind of missing the point. You're not living in the moment, which is kind of the point of it all in the first place.
No, agreed. I think that that's important to recognize that because really, back into what I said before, the meaning of life is trying to find ways to make the best out of it. And if you're spending that entire time searching for ways to do that, you miss the opportunities to go and just live life as it is and enjoy it by looking for ways to do that. And it's ironically the worst way to spend your life.
1 second, I'm just gonna make sure really quickly that there aren't RDO issues on the stream.
It's ironically the worst way to spend your life.
1 second, I'm just gonna make sure. No, that sounds fine to me. Oh well, hopefully it's fine. Few seconds delay, yeah, that's to be expected. Alright, so, no, I think that's completely fair. Alright, let's go on to, Pope. Pope, what do you think?
Well, I think that this is a very complicated subject because life is such a roller coaster.
Wow, Pope, you really just took the politician approach to this, the whole disclaimer at the beginning. I like that. I like that. Etho comes out swinging and he's like, here's how it is. And then Pope, the politician, is like, well, before I start, I just want everyone to know. Okay, you can continue.
I mean, like, thanks. So, like, but seriously, like, the meaning of life is so crazy because life itself is a roller coaster. And I think that there's, like, I agree with Etho in that there's no one way to define it. But if you are searching for the meaning of life, you're not going to find it because you are already living that meaning. Your goals in life, that's the meaning of life. What you see for yourself, what you want to accomplish, is your meaning for life. Everybody has their own meaning. You know, let's just say Spike thinks that, you know, making money or, you know, meeting new people. Or,
wow, I see how it is. The first thing you think I care about in life is money. Damn, Pope, I'm broke and you know that. Are you saying my life has no meaning?
But seriously, think about it. You know, everybody's own meaning of life is different. You know, maybe Dan's meaning of life is dating Jam. Maybe the love from Jam Bam is what makes him, you know, run every day. And the meaning of life changes over time. It's not the same, but ultimately, it's really up to that person.
So I'm gonna bring up a question from chat for everyone, from Plasma Bolts. So the meaning of my life is being a gamer, huh? I'm gonna say hashtag gamer lives are important. And
I'd say if well, I mean, kind of to respond to that, if you yourself find fulfillment and enjoyment out of being a gamer, and in that you have felt happy and content, and can say by the time you're on your deathbed that I have lived a life worth living, then if you gamed that entire time, you are a gamer, and that is the essential meaning of your life.
If you spent your entire life on Steam playing anime dating simulators, and you're proud of that in your deathbed, then good on you.
And nobody should really, I mean, sure, you can judge someone in your head, but never judge anybody for what they want to do, as long as it's not illegal or, like, dumb. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
you know,
dumb is subjective, though.
Until you get caught. Legality changes. Just because something's legal doesn't mean that it's right.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying as long as that person stays moral to themselves, we shouldn't judge them.
Whoa! Are you arguing for moral relativism
this is getting a little scary.
Are you arguing for moral relativism right here?
This is the pasta argument right here. Pasta should be here. All right, so if we're gonna move into moral relativism, then
I don't even know what that is.
Okay, let's for a show of hands, we'll ask the question, and Dan, you're allowed to get involved in this as well.
Yeah,
but,
let's let Dan talk.
But since we've kind of switched subjects so rapidly, I think this is actually a really interesting one to talk about, moral relativism, because this is where me and Pasta constantly argue in current events. Do you guys think that there are a set of morals that are just correct, or do you think that all morals are relative to the position you're in life?
No,
I don't
so
agree.
So at least where I come from, so moral relativism, obviously, like, it makes sense to someone who would be, in our current society, it makes sense. That is the current mainstream way of thinking. But I just simply don't think it's true. I think the best way to explain the, state of why there are moral truths is to think of it like, so if you were to go outside and take like a square meter of just dirt, right, from the ground.
Got it. A square meter of dirt. That's
Got
very
it. I'm gonna
specific.
go grab some. I'll be right back.
There is a definitive answer as to how many little particles of dirt there is in there, right?
That's true.
So, because you're not gonna know just by standing there and looking at it. You can't just say there's this many in there. You could hire people to help you take sample sizes and start to find that stuff out. But it's practically impossible to find out whether or not there is or isn't the definitive amount there.
I'm really excited for when you wrap this around to morals, because I'm really lost.
So no. So the reason why I explain that is because there still can be definitive moral truths that exist but are very difficult to find. Like, there are different ways that we could attempt to find these moral truths, and that's something akin to, trying to take samples of the ground, getting experts who are soil experts, something like that. It's a really stupid example.
Oh, that's a deep one from Luca.
Like,
I'm gonna pin that for later.
Yeah.
But like, if you were to do that, like, it's a good way to kind of visualize in your mind how the process of finding moral truth is like. And it's important to recognize that we may not be able to find those moral truths, but in attempts to find those moral truths and recognize that they do exist is something that is important, if at the base level for us as human beings to understand.
So
but Etho, there's a huge difference between someone. Okay, so I agree with you completely. I think that there are specific moral values that should always be considered moral, like giving giving to the poor is a good moral value, or helping people out when they need help is a good moral value.
Well, here's the thing, Pope, going off of that, one of the things that one of my experiences in college where I really disagreed with one of my professors was actually in anthropology. And in anthropology, a big part of it is studying other cultures. And one of the things our professor told them is, no matter what, you've never been in the shoes of another culture, so you're not allowed to judge the things that they do culturally. And in my mind, I still, to this point, I completely disagree with that. And one of the things I was thinking is, well, if a culture believes in sacrificing people, or say, like, killing children, or even in action, we're gonna get a little bit... whatever, this is supposed to be a mature conversation, so like, in some parts of the country, or not in this country, but in some countries, they still practice things where they like mutilate children and stuff. So the question becomes like, I disagreed with my professor, because I was like, no, I would never support, or I think that those things are morally wrong no matter where it happens. But the question becomes like, do you guys agree with that, or do you think that if you never know it's wrong, is it really wrong?
Well, here's the thing. When speaking of morals, you gotta speak in the era in which they happened, but also while taking in the fact that things obviously are wrong. So, interesting, if you're talking, let's just talk about the Aztecs. The Aztecs did something called self-sacrificing. They would sacrifice themselves for the gods. They would sacrifice other people for the gods. They would sacrifice slaves for the gods. Today, that is something that is morally wrong, and I think we can all agree that sacrificing slaves is not a good thing, right?
Sacrificing anyone is generally a bad thing.
No, yeah.
Against their will. If
But
someone to
I would-
sacrifice themselves, that's fine, but sacrificing
yeah.
other people against their will, a little
Yeah,
bit iffy.
that's
While
the thing.
we do
is-
have a break in this, I will say just briefly, I do appreciate that you brought up the idea of like morality changing how we should view the people who
Yeah.
had these moral inconsistencies in the past.
Yeah.
That's very integral to other conversations to have. But I think really what Spike was getting at is in current cultural situations, like current existing cultures and what people currently do.
Well,
But I do value what
I think Pope does make a point though, because even if we look back, like, was it, and this goes back way further, like it goes back to like the founding fathers, right? And like we all know that like the
And when they
founding
owned
fathers did
Exactly.
terrible things, but like when you look back and you look at, or colonialism, when all the countries and everyone was just invading each other and chopping up countries, it's like, did they back then, they were in a position where it wasn't seen as wrong. So if nobody ever told them it was wrong, were they really bad people, or was it just a
Well,
result of their environment?
I wasn't
So-
saying that they were bad people per se. People. I wouldn't say that they were bad people. While it's still morally incorrect, you can't, just say out of ignorance. That being the case, that they were bad people. If ignorance is the cause of vice, then you can't necessarily blame them and make judgments on their character. But if a person is educated and still has this vice, then there's issues there with the character of the individual. So if you are able to educate people, say for example you have an isolated group of people in the middle of the Amazon and they have no idea what we're doing over here. They're 600 years in the past. So hypothetically, if they were acting in bad ways morally, and they did that out of ignorance of what is right and wrong, then if one were to educate these individuals on what is right and wrong, then if they still continued it, then they would be acting poorly. They would have bad character. But if they were if they changed after that, then that's good progress. It's possible to learn morality through habit.
I would just
if
like
you
to
teach those habits. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to make a quick point. So on that point, this is a very, very complicated issue for our viewers. Like, thinking about it from a person's perspective, you're like, well, this, and then you're like, well, actually, it's a very complicated subject. But I came to a realization that I think is very good. So I thought that, notice that today, we have the ability to look back on our ancestors and judge them for the actions and the moral stances they took. I think that as society becomes more advanced, we become more understanding and more aware of what is moral and what is not.
So,
And
what's kind of crazy to me, and I think about sometimes? So
What?
this may seem a little bit out there, but so think of how nowadays we look into the past and we look at things people do and we're like, not me personally, I don't do it because I think it's kind of a bad train of logic, but a lot of people go and they'll be like, oh, the founding fathers were evil because they did X, Y, and Z, which is now morally wrong. I wonder if in the future, imagine if in the future, for example, just not because I think this will happen, but because I think that it would be interesting for a thought process. Let's say vegans just took over the world and everyone stopped eating meat. Would the vegans look back at us and rip down our statues and be like, those people ate meats? They are morally wrong and horrible people?
Spike,
Without understanding the cultural and syntactic situation we're in? Do you think that could happen, the same thing in the future, where people look back at us and the weird things we do and they completely tarnish everything we've done?
yeah, that's a really, really good point. You helped me to realize that. That helped to bring me back into the middle a little bit. Think about it. That's a very good point. But you gotta understand, there are just because vegans take over and it's all about meat, there are other things that are just generally wrong. Slavery is generally wrong. Making someone your servant is generally, forcing someone to be your servant is wrong. But Etho or Dan, I'd like Dan to just. Dan, do you want to say anything?
Dan is silent.
Dan is eating a steak.
Yeah.
So, like, kind of to respond.
we're like left, right, authoritarian,
Yo, I just poured
libertarian,
myself
and then you've
I
got
just poured
myself some
Dan.
Cheetos.
Dan's just like, I just want to grill and eat some steak, damn it.
Yum.
But
Uh,
yeah, no. But with that, I think there's a kind of scary dystopia that you're kind of outlining with the idea of, you know, a group of people rising to power and imposing their version of morality on the people. And I think that can be seen in previous societies. If you look at, say, for example, Stalin or Hitler's regimes, they, you know, put forth a state idea of morality, and a lot of people followed through with that version of morality that the state put forward. And I think that could be a very dangerous thing if morality is taken, the reins of morality are taken by the state.
all right, can someone get Alligate speaking permissions, because he was
I
supposed to be
already
invited and we
gave him that.
forgot to give him
Alright,
speaking
welcome, Spike.
permissions.
I mean, welcome, Alligator.
Jeez, guys, it's been almost a half hour, and I've been sitting here silent.
Sorry, Alligate.
Alligate.
All right,
Alligate,
let's.
I
hate you.
Alligate, we're gonna give you like 5 minutes to catch up. What do you think? You've gotten to hear pretty much. You're kind of the outsider here because we all know you're a complete libtard. So, no, I'm joking.
I clearly you haven't seen some of my results. But,
All right, Alligate. Moral relativism.
Well-
Do you think that we should judge people based on current standards?
I'll be honest, this is like the one topic that I could go either way.
Yeah, so
Like, well,
I can agree with that.
I think like I don't remember
yeah.
who said it because I can't really recognize some of your voices. But if you're talking about, okay, my memory's too bad. Yeah, I agree with what one of you guys
No.
said. I don't remember who.
Yeah, you're good.
Good to know you agree with one of us.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna.
I'm glad. I'm glad
It
you
was
agree
it
with
was
one.
definitely me. Okay, out of all the people,
Okay, Spike. Yeah, okay.
So
Alligate would never recognize my voice.
Yeah.
It was probably
Still on the
Etho.
topic of morality, before we do shift away from morality, I'm just gonna plug in some moral and ethical
Mhm.
teaching here. So I myself, I am a virtue ethicist. Now, what does this mean? So
It means
basically-
you only care about your own virtue and want everyone else to die in pain, right?
well, no. Okay, so there are three basic categories of ethics, and it basically deals with where an action is being committed. And, like, where do we look in the process of an action? Do we look for what is moral and what's not moral? So that goes from the intent, the actual person, and the consequence. So intent-based ethics, you're looking at people like Immanuel Kant, who would say, like, the intention of the action is what makes it moral or not. Then you have virtue ethics. That's like Socrates, Aristotle, talking about, like, the character of the individual who makes the decisions, and that would be the source of the morality. And then you have consequentialist ethics, which basically looks at, like, what does the action do, what's the results of that, and that determines whether or not it's ethical or not. You have
See,
people like
that's-
John Stuart Mill.
That's where me and Pasta get in a lot of arguments, because I honestly do not agree with consequentialism at all.
It's stupid. You can justify so many terrible
Well,
things.
Yeah.
the thing to me is, like, if
Well,
in
it's not happening.
consequentialism, like,
Yeah.
if I try to shoot someone, if my bullet misses, it's not morally wrong. Now, if Pasta comes in here and corrects me on that, but I believe I actually asked him that exact question, and he was like, no, if nothing happened bad, it wasn't wrong. And it's like,
Yeah,
that's,
and there's some.
I feel like that's just too shaky. The other
Well, you shot the
two...
gun. I mean,
There's
if you
a-
shot the gun, you should hit the consequence.
But I'm going to wrap this back around to the actual main idea, because I think that this connects. And the reason why I actually picked up the moral relativism thread is because I think that morality and what you believe the meaning of life is connect a lot. I would argue that someone who is a consequentialist would probably be more likely to argue that life doesn't have inherent meaning, in someone who looks at things like me, where I consider myself more of a moral absolutist. I think that there are things that are absolutely good and absolutely evil, and
Yeah, here's
and I think that the purpose of life
Yeah.
would most likely be to try to leave people off more on the
Yeah.
good side than when you joined. So helping other people. I think that if your life,
basic moral things.
if you used your life to hurt other people, then I think you
Yeah.
basically threw out the entire point, because
And I just came to I think a really good realization is that, let's take I don't know, George Washington. George Washington obviously had slaves, right? And he gets a lot of hate now for it. And I think we can all agree that having slaves are bad. But at the
please,
time,
we can all
having-
agree on that, right?
No, yeah, I'm hoping.
So, I hope
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Okay, good.
alligator.
Just making sure.
Yeah. All right. So basically, at the time, the status quo was pro-slavery. Now, I don't think that we should punish someone, or we should necessarily even look down. I mean, we can say that it was bad that what they did, but at the time, it was socially acceptable. That doesn't make it right, but it makes it. We have to forgive them because the
So,
entirety of society and the
A
entire human race. was
very
okay with it.
interesting connection to this is how the law treats children. Because if a child shows that they legitimately don't understand that what they did was wrong, and they're at an age where the law can
Yeah.
see that there's no way they would know the morality of their actions, usually they can get off free. If like a child accidentally like kills someone or something, you're not going to try them like an adult. And I think it may seem kind of like, what's the word, patronizing to look at people like grown adults in the past and like treat them like little children, but I think kind of by the same thread, if the world's intellectualism and the opinions and all of the moral frameworks that we have now don't exist yet, I wonder if it falls under kind of the same thing. Like, you just didn't know.
Yeah, I mean
Well, that's a
that
good
falls
point.
into the ignorance that I was
But
talking about before.
There's some things that I'll still argue are always morally wrong. And the reason I'm going to disagree with people who say otherwise is because, like, the one thing that you know is wrong, that you always know is wrong, is because you are a human. You know what humans feel when they're suffering and stuff. And if you're making someone else suffer, you are aware of it. And there is no way that you can... There's no way that you can explain away creating more human suffering, because everyone knows once you reach a certain age, of course, the children don't really understand the whole empathy thing, but any adult should have enough empathy to realize that if they're hurting someone else, that is morally wrong. And possibly you can make the argument that back then, with things like slavery, the arguments in the air were that, like, not everyone was human. They thought that different races were like different species, but now we know that's kind of just complete BS.
Yeah, obviously. And that goes back to my
um,
point that eras had their own morality, and that every era we develop new morals and we realize what was wrong and we try to fix it.
See,
But
no,
that
I
doesn't
wouldn't say that
mean-
we develop new ones. It's that we discover those that are there that we
Those
did not
that were
previously.
there,
Because
exactly.
if you say that, then you're arguing that there's like a
Mhm.
made-up quality
And
to
that's-
morals, and that's incorrect.
Yeah, and it goes back to the fact, like, let's just say I drive a gas car, and in the future everybody looks down on that. Should I be punished for driving a gas car 50 years ago when everybody else
Oh,
was
Pope, I have a better question. Should your children be punished?
for
Ooh,
driving a gas
because
car?
I know where you're going.
Because
with that.
because
I know where you're
nowadays
going
we
with
have
that.
a legitimate
Reparations.
movement where some people believe that we should punish the children for the sins of the parents and the grandparents and the
Absolutely not.
ancestry. And
Absolutely not.
that is a very interesting subject that I think is
And-
just... I personally don't get it, but if one of you support it, then maybe you can try to enlighten me on it,
I
because
definitely
No, I
do
think
not
it's
support
stupid.
that.
Because-
I think that's just dumb.
because that's the thing with the
kid has
vegan
nothing.
thing.
Kid knows nothing.
Like the
That's
the argument I would make is, let's say vegans take over the world.
agree with
Should my children have
agree with
to spend time in prison because I ate cows?
Meat reparations.
It's,
Reparations pay the meat people.
I don't
Yeah.
know. See, this
But-
is. I think when people think about these things, they have to stop thinking about people in the past, and they need to think in the future, because it's very easy to go, well, we have to make up for what happened in the past. But then again, who knows what nowadays it is that your children will be punished for that you did. Throwing
Like,
away
that is
batteries.
Like, okay, those are the petty things. Honestly, it is never okay to punish anybody for something that they did not do. Like, that's just general knowledge. You don't punish. Let's just say I take a random person off the street and someone right next to them shot somebody. Am I really going to punish the person who saw him shoot somebody? Like, that's just that's the kind of thing. It just and you know, they do that in North Korea. You know
You see,
that?
I actually
They
think
do
one of
that
the
in North Korea, and they arrest people who are family of people who have left the country.
one of the really interesting things that I see, that I think that our society did really well with when it comes for punishing like someone for this, like what their parents or whatever did, is I think something that really demonstrates the reason that it's good that we don't is debt. Like, think about if when your parents died, their debt got passed on to you. Like, that would be an insane. We're talking like, imagine how different things would be. That would be
it would be
absolutely insane, and
But,
I think that would be awful. That would
I
be.
mean, and another
What an awful world that would be. But it's the same
But,
thing.
yeah.
It's the same thing. Passing on the mistakes of someone onto
Yeah.
the next person
Yeah.
is wrong.
it's like
I-
passing somebody's debt onto their children. It's like passing someone's debt onto their children, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I do want to switch gears, possibly, if you guys are all right with it. There's something
No.
that was brought up by something that I think is also something that's interesting to talk about, and it does connect to this. You know, he brought up that people are pushing for stuff like reparations, and then affirmative action is something else I want to speak about, but that racism still exists and has impacts today. But
It does.
I want to speak about that specifically, and I know that we're going to have some disagreement on this too,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is going to be interesting
Oh,
about
yeah.
that.
Well,
So,
I'll
I-
speak first because my view on this is actually really simple.
yeah, I do want to finish it because there was a lead-up question.
Okay, go
based
ahead.
on
Go
that.
ahead, Etho.
Yeah, so, you know, because of that, I just wanted to say, you know, with that, because obviously people are still racist, but do systems like slavery reparations and affirmative action accurately and, you know, helpfully
Yeah.
correct these issues?
On the slavery, I have to agree that yes, I think that people back then should have received reparations for slavery. You know,
No,
let's
but I
just
mean, like now, do
Oh.
people now pay reparations
so-
for slavery?
this is an interesting subject. A long
Did
time
you not
ago,
say
we
that you
did.
disagree with it before?
No. So basically, my point is, a long time ago, we promised that we would give slaves, or former slaves, you know, I think it was like a mile of land and an ox or something. I don't even know, but it was something like that. And we were going to give them that, and you know, once they got out of the, you know, once they got away from the master, they would receive that. But obviously, that never ended up happening. And so I think that, you know, let's say that this is a very complicated subject. I don't know what's
Actually, Pope, I'm going to agree with you. I actually think if they had given all of the free slave, because back then there was so much land
yeah.
and it was all open,
Yeah.
I think that would have
Yeah.
made a lot of
Well,
sense.
yeah.
I agree, and
back
that would
then,
also
but it doesn't make
kickstarted a
sense
lot.
now.
That would also help the economy a lot.
My
back then.
my
Yeah.
issue with the current proposals is that you are getting, and the thing is, you can say, I think everyone here will agree that racism still exists.
Yes,
right?
It does.
And I'll even say there are still racist systems that exist.
Oh yeah, especially the
Such
school system.
as
But
It's
my
right.
my
what's
issue
racist systems still exist.
my issue is
Still
that the way that you're going to fund anything that for a proposal like reparations, the issue is where is the money coming from? Tax dollars, right? Which means
We
that you are punishing everyone equally. So you're not really punishing racists.
Yeah.
You're punishing
And-
everyone. You could have
and I
the
have-
most well-intentioned person in the world, and they're still going to be taxed for it. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's group punishment, and it's just as bad as when your teacher takes away everyone's recess because one kid's being loud. It's like that's not how punishment should work.
And I actually have something that I think would make a lot of sense. Instead of paying, all descendants of former slaves a specific amount of money, instead of paying them money directly, we actually invest in their communities. We build in their communities, specifically communities that are targeted by racism, and in communities that are still feeling the effects of the abolishment of slavery and the civil rights era. Like honestly, think about that. If we, instead of just paying people money, we actually invest in their community and we bring them riches in the future, they will receive them. If we build schools, they're gonna get an education and they're gonna do really well.
I think honestly we have a massive issue throughout the entire country, not just racially, but the investing in future generations. We have a major issue. We've got into the habit of borrowing from future generations. It's like the whole student debt argument. Rather than our politicians finding a actually standing up to universities and being like, you have to stop raising your tuitions. Instead, they're going to borrow money from the future to placate everyone now, not fix the problem, and then our children are going to end up paying all the student debt. And it's like, what? You can solve the core problem, but they don't.
It's just logically
That's the story of government right there.
It is sad, and sadly, it's really both sides. Like, I know, let's be honest here, it is really both sides. Like, no one has taken a strong action against it.
I don't even think it's a party issue. I think it's a person issue.
I'm just disappointed in the government.
I think it's just a people issue. We look at our problems and we say, I want my debt paid off. Government, please give money. The government gives us money, and then we have to pay interest on it. And who's paying that interest?
We are.
Us and our children.
That's the thing I find so stupid about people who ask for, like the government could solve our problems. Because what ends up happening is they're like, all right, here's the thing we need to pay off or deal with because it costs too much. We'll run it through the government. Because then it's quote unquote free. But then we all just communally pay for it through tax dollars.
God, there was this horrible article I read, and it was about how it was on the Green New Deal actually. Because they were talking about the full price tag on it before they completely redid it to make it slightly less ridiculous. So they had like the $100 trillion price tag, and rather than argue about the price tag, the article said here's how we can pay for it. And it basically, the article said, we can print as much money as we want. And it said, no, here's the interesting argument. The guy was an economist. So he wasn't a complete idiot. And he said, here's the thing. What creates value for money is taxation. Because as long as people have to pay money back at some point, then there's going to be value for it. So you can prevent inflation by increasing prices and by increasing taxes. But I was thinking okay, sure, you're technically correct. If you raised the prices of everything and you raised taxes and created more demand for the money, I guess you could technically curb the effects of inflation. But you just basically robbed the next 20 generations. Why can't people think further ahead than 1 year? I legitimately
such short time frames. It's
but
scary because
I don't understand how people just never ask who's paying for things. And it's the same thing with if you think about the meaning of life, wrapping back to the main thing, we make investments in our own lives, right?
Yeah.
We make investments every day. We invest into our intelligence, our health, our communities, and some people really screw that up because they say, I'll do this later. The procrastination is basically what the government is perfect at. And it's the ultimate.
Now hold up.
Same thing as...
Don't be insulting procrastination nation, okay?
Oh, finally we got Alligate to speak up.
Oh yeah, I agree with Alligate
you
on
guys
this
were
one.
talking nonstop for the past 20 minutes.
Well, I just want to make a quick point that, the issue with... Okay, so I believe that taxing the rich and those who are wealthy is something that we should do. We should tax everybody. But the thing is, people who can afford things, people who are more fortunate and those who are less fortunate, more fortunate should always, try their best and give to those who are less fortunate. And
Okay,
sometimes
so
there are many
I'm gonna
people who
I
are
think
not willing to do
yeah,
that.
what I'm gonna say here though is, are you saying that, all right, yes, we can all agree that it is important to help those who are less fortunate, but are you saying that the way that we do that is by, like, basically by legal means putting, like, twisting their arm and saying you're forced to give charity? Because that's pretty much what certain taxes are.
I've kind of always had the opinion, now all of you could go off on me, but I've always said that it would make far more sense, instead of using tax dollars to like try to push all of this money, instead what we should do is we should make it so that you can't write off on taxes stock investments, because then the only thing left that you can write off is investing into communities and businesses and stuff. And I feel like that social change, if we got people to, instead of investing in, because writing, when you give to charity, you can write that off. You will save money on your taxes if you give money to charity. And that's kind of like, it's a positive reward instead of a negative. Instead of taxes taking away your money for holding on to it, it's basically rewarding you for giving away your money. But I think the issue right now is we also reward people for all kinds of investment, even when that investment is completely completely useless, like a multinational corporation being invested in. I don't think that should be tax deductible. I think that we could fix a lot of problems in the world if we looked at, because like you can always raise taxes, but as someone who owns a business and I'm actually doing my taxes in a few weeks, you don't pay taxes on your income, you pay taxes on your profit. And it's very easy for a business like Apple to go, well, I just invested $1 trillion into research, we made no money, we're gonna pay no tax this year. And they're technically correct. So,
but it's also important to invest in your business.
But what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter if the government raised the tax rate to 90% on the richest people in the world. They're still going to pay nothing.
By tax write-offs. And I can actually agree with that. We definitely need to reform the tax system.
But I think that most politicians are deflecting. It's all talk, because they can say, "Oh, we're going to raise that." And do you know who the only people? Do you know who the only people are who actually pay that additional tax? You know who can't write off expenses?
Most Americans.
The poor and middle class.
Yeah.
Those are the people who can't actually write off their expenses.
Because they don't have the money to actually spend to write off those taxes.
It's always crazy to me when people say, we're going to raise the taxes on the rich, because the rich will still pay no taxes. What they should really be doing is fixing the tax loopholes for the rich. But nobody will ever do that, because do you know who's rich? Congress is rich. Congratulations. It's
Nancy Pelosi and her $20,000.
And that's the thing. I actually don't get too annoyed by people, or even taxes. I'm not like full-on libertarian, like abolish all taxes. However, I see that raising taxes on a system where you can just write literally everything off anyways, what's the point? There is no point. All you're gonna do is hurt the people at the bottom. Always, every time.
And there's also a couple things. There's a lot of okay, so we have a lot of issues in our tax system. For example, if a church, or they register, let's just say a bad company that money launders money, and they're a bad organization, but
Apple, Amazon, Google.
No.
I'm sorry, I'm not naming any names.
You're good, but think about it. If a company wants to launder money, and they they register with the IRS as a church organization, they can get thousands of dollars in tax benefits just for registering as a church. That's another thing we have to solve. We have to solve the problem.
So are you saying that we should tax churches?
So here's the thing.
No. I'm saying we should reform how we decide what's a church.
I don't know how I feel, because here's the thing. I will say that it is a very gray area of the law that things like churches are tax exempt. Now, one thing I don't like, though, is when people say given tax benefits. I think saying that line is misleading. It's like the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they were gonna give Amazon $10 billion. No, they were going to not tax Amazon $10 billion. That's very different than handing them money. It's just not taking their money. So first off, we don't really give them anything, we just don't take anything. But my issue The one issue I have with things like taxing churches is that when you look at things like food banks, like churches are one of the places, if you are poor and you have nothing to eat, you can walk in, and I'm pretty much any legitimate church will take people in and try to help them out. So
I think the
it's
church does more for the poor than the government does.
it's
And
basically
that's the thing
it's taxing charity, and it's now things like the mega
No,
churches
I
that are
think
like
you
on
miss-
TV and stuff.
Like Scientology. Scientology does
Okay,
a lot
so
of money laundering.
Scientology isn't really even a church. They're just
It's not even a church. It's literally like a cult. They
well,
have
they
a cult
blackmailed the
following.
CIA
but
and
that's-
FBI.
They
here's-
literally exactly, and they have attacked IRS people, and they follow them, and they literally like threaten them until they
Well,
finally
but
stop.
here's the
about this.
issue. The issue with the whole tax exempt
Let's be
church
careful
thing
about this before we
is
get
that
taken
how
by.
do
And I
you
live in Clearwater, where they're headquartered.
how do you define a church? Because if we actually had a legal definition of a church, can you imagine the outcry there would be?
You
That would
see,
infringe on the First Amendment.
That
yeah,
would
yeah.
Would it though?
that would be so. It's kind of, you gotta either
You need-
like, you have to
yeah.
either be
Here's-
like good faith or nothing.
Mhm.
And I think right now,
Yeah.
I don't know, it would be really hard to define like a religious institution in a way that would be fair to all religions.
And here's a very important point. The problem with our government is we have committees and we have, congressional. We let the political establishment control many parts of the government. Like, we allow the political establishment to control what we spend our money on. We allow the political establishment to do a lot of things like that. And that, I think, is one of the biggest issues and one of the biggest, most inherently understandable issues. We should have independent, appointed by an independent commission, like independent commissions on specific issues that actually like make those issues happen. Like, let's
Pope
just say
be
we have
like
a-
direct democracy.
No, I'm not saying that.
No.
What I'm saying,
I'm
no.
joking. Calm down.
You're good. What I'm saying is that we should have, for example, like a committee on, what is it? Oh my God, it is like the money you make. Okay, it's like
Income.
we should have a committee on taxes in general. We should have an independent committee that's fairly divided, an independent committee that decides what the taxes should be, so that it's not a political issue. It's an issue that the professionals.
But
are able
here's
to
the
decide.
problem.
You're just talking about bureaucracy.
No,
No,
that's
not
what I was gonna
bureaucracy.
say. But the
no,
issue
no,
is,
no,
Pope,
no.
every committee you make is going to have its own bias, and then you have 18. Have you ever heard the term alphabet soup? So I forget which president it was. I think it was FDR, actually. I might be wrong. It may have been Teddy.
It is FDR.
FDR.
Teddy.
Or-
It is.
Okay, it's
FDR.
one of the two. You've both said it's a different one. But they used to get made fun of because during their time in the presidency, they made like 800 new like divisions of the government, and it was called
Yeah, the
alphabet
FDR.
soup because like every single 3-letter acronym was taken up. You have like the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Agriculture. There's like 8,000 departments, and the people were asking,
Alright, so
is it really helping anything from adding more and more and more departments to be over and under more and more and more departments, where we have to pay more and more and more money for more and more and more bureaucracy? How much alphabet soup do we need?
Yeah,
But-
that's
Alright,
FDR.
so here's some
FDR
We
was
should
like,
have independent.
All right, let something O
Yeah.
speak because his
Alright, you
sexy
go.
voice needs to be released.
all right, so here's some context, right? So yeah, FDR, Great Depression. So yeah, he had a tendency of like keep trying things to try to improve the economy. Whether it actually worked or not, that's a separate topic that I'm not going to get here. Like AAA, the National Recovery
Social
Administration,
Security, I believe.
Social Security, etc. Anyways, or you guys can go on.
Okay, so
What?
here's my point. Is what I meant by independent commission is like a nonpartisan, like a commission that focuses on that issue. Like, if you have politicians making decisions about things that they don't even understand, it's going to be biased.
Wait,
Like-
Pope, are we
what?
talking local and state rights?
Yeah.
Local
sort of.
government, best
Yeah.
government?
Yes.
Well,
It's-
well,
people living somewhere know their own issues better than people halfway across the country?
Yes, but there
is
are
that what we're
specific issues that need there are specific issues that need to be
Hey, Spike, let's
faced
talk about that.
nationally.
I
There
just
are
like
specific-
pulling
I
your leg,
have
Pope.
something to add.
No, honestly,
So-
Alligate, I think you'll agree with me. Alligate, like, I don't want people.
No, I'm saying
I don't think
whatever
people from your
happened
city
to a
should.
local government in a certain island.
Oh.
I'm just saying.
Okay, but
I'm
Vooperia.
just saying.
Okay, the Emperor here, let me explain. Vooperia is
no.
designed
Vooperian
to be a
politics.
literal dictatorship that's kind of jokingly not one. It's like
Yeah,
written
honestly.
it's written in the sand.
Yeah, it's
I'm-
kind of like this is a dictatorship, but
I'm
also
right
like not.
I'm writing a
Break the sand then.
I'm writing a novel based on like a third, like someone outside of the system being like thrown into Vooperia, and like it paints it in a really bad light because in reality Vooperia would
You're
be
writing a novel?
Vooperia would literally be a military dictatorship. That's what it is.
Spike,
It's
Spike,
fun to
you're
role
making a
play in,
novel?
but let's admit that Vooperia is a military dictatorship. It has.
honestly,
Yeah, we all know
It's-
that. I
we all
mean,
know
we're,
that.
If
yeah.
we ran
we're
a
a
true
puppet
democracy, do you
And
know?
Pope Francis is a approver of it. He makes it happen.
If we
Sorry.
ran a true democracy, we all know we would be alphabet soup. Do you know how many different just with the Senate, do you know how many different departments have almost been created for several things that are completely useless?
DBC.
There is
VDOT. I
I mean,
love
it's not
VDOT. VDOT
all
is
government.
amazing.
even
You can never
with
take
me
VDOT away from me.
having absolute power to veto whatever I want and rewrite whatever I want, we still have miles of red tape. Miles. We have like 80 bills for each subject, and we don't.
Honestly.
Anyone can be sued for doing anything at this point. This is why government inflates so quickly.
Yeah.
Because politicians say, what are we allowed to do? Well, we have to write laws on what we're allowed to do. Well, how do we know if we're allowed to do that? Well, we have to check the last laws we wrote to see if we're allowed to write these new laws, which are going to say which laws we can write in the future.
And
it's-
like
what a
honestly,
mess.
on a point of
But
my
democracy is the best kind of government out of all those
It
already
is.
tried. It's
I
just
agree
it,
with-
it,
I agree with that.
it still sucks though, because all government sucks.
Yeah, you can
Yes.
never make a perfect government, but you could also
Okay, I'm
never have
reading the
complete
stream
anarchy.
chat and I'm
Because if you have
disappointed.
anarchy, nothing's organized and nothing works.
Well, yeah, no. I personally believe that no form of government that a human makes will ever be fully functional.
Are
There
you
is
arguing
always
for an
flaws in-
AI-run government, Etho?
No.
Etho-based?
Okay.
Etho-based?
I'm speaking from the position of someone who is religious. So, like, I do believe that, like, so I have my own opinions. I am a libertarian. I have my views on how the government should work and how I believe that there's.
Are you
You know,
a
an
Rand
inherent-
Paul simp? Are you a Rand Paul simp?
Actually,
Yes,
I'm...
I am. You have a problem with that?
A lot of people, for some
Yes.
reason, a lot of people, for some reason, assume that I'm like some sort of like atheist or something. Everyone says it, but I would identify myself as a Christian, so.
I am Catholic, even though I do dumb.
So,
Am I the
But-
only atheist here?
But I'd say
Even though I
one
had
of,
underage sex.
I think one of
we
the
don't talk about that.
I think one of the interesting arguments, one of the interesting parts in the Bible is the idea of like God's kingdom, and I think whether you support, whether you believe in like the Bible and or any kind of religion, like I wonder how it would turn out if you actually had like would even God be able to get humans to follow rules? Like
Honestly,
I don't know.
humans are honestly, the thing about humans is let's be honest here, we are very selfish. Like, no matter how much we try to, like, make us look not selfish, we're always gonna have personal bias. Like, there's no way to take that away.
And one of the other things is like to me
And
part
children
of
are some of the best examples of humans. So.
part of the meaning of life to me is the free will, and I feel like if there's a reason, now this is getting a little bit more into religion, but if there is a reason that we don't get any signs of a higher power, I think part of it would be because that would kind of ruin the point, wouldn't it? That would take away our
We
will.
have a religion.
Because
we have
if
a
you-
religion.
If you had someone over you, basically dangling over you, and you knew it, and you knew that everything you did was going to be judged, I wonder if that's kind of prohibiting, you know, the freedom that we've been given as humans.
Yeah, we
and-
have
and
free
the-
will to be doing, you know, what is right or what is wrong, and based on
Yeah.
that, you know, it's kind of like, you know, if you consistently, See, that's why I don't like the idea of like the government forcing morality on
And
people.
forcing religion too.
Well,
Any
yeah, no,
government
well,
that forces religion
yeah,
is bad.
I don't believe that we should force religion or morality, but I think that there's an inherent free will that we do have as human beings, and we have that to be able to make the correct or incorrect choices that we need to make. And if we make the correct choices, that's on us. If we make the incorrect choices, that's on us. But I don't think
Uh-huh.
that the government should be either forcing
Yeah,
morality, or
I have.
and I,
Mhm.
there's a very interesting group. It's a website that I found that kind of summarizes like a connection between libertarian and Catholic thought, and I posted it a couple, probably like a week ago in the debate channel. It's definitely something that I think is worth reading, even if you're not a libertarian or a Catholic. But it's just a very interesting way of reconciling two seemingly like opposed ideologies.
Honestly, it sucks that Silly's in here because
No,
Silly's
no,
kind of
no.
left.
So, are you talking
know what I
about the
mean?
site that you linked that had a picture of Snoop Dogg on it?
Okay, can we get Silly in here? Can someone
No,
please
that's
get
not
Silly in here?
Snoop Dogg.
Oh,
No,
we're
it's a
actually
picture
gonna
of
be
Snoop
ending
Dogg.
soon. I have to leave at
Oh, okay.
like 8,
Well,
so.
Okay, well, I have a question. This may be kind of a hot topic issue. I'm interested to see what you think. But can I bring this up?
Well, you didn't even say what the topic is. How am I supposed to know if
Oh,
you
okay.
can bring
No,
it
no,
up
no.
or
Okay,
not?
all right. So let's just say I'm.
If it starts with an A, probably not.
Okay, no,
That's
no,
a
no.
little bit too spicy for this one. Maybe in the future if this gets a little bit.
So
Culture?
I have a question. So if let's just say
Anchovies on pizza. That's what I was gonna
Yes.
say.
No, no, no. I'm
Terrible.
and I have the ability to make decisions for myself to the point where I can basically live my life, my daily life, without help from my parents. Should I, yes or no, be able to participate in sexual activities with someone of my age?
Whoa, hold on, where are we going here?
Pope, are you feeling guilty?
No!
Is this
Shut up.
deep in your mind? I mean,
No, no,
how
no,
you?
no, no, this-
Okay,
no, no,
okay,
no,
Pope,
no,
Pope,
no,
Pope,
no, no, no,
Pope. You
no.
won't get in trouble because we'll be very careful. Okay, so Pope, if you had hypothetically,
Of course. this
yeah,
never happened,
hypothetically, if you had done something unchristian, I mean,
Yes.
but I think
We all know he did it. He's
So-
admitted to it several
so,
times. He said
so
he did it.
I mean, it depends on the religion, though. I'd say in like Christianity, that like part of the big things in Christianity is understanding that humans are flawed and the forgiveness inherent in that. So like, but
The
I
thing
don't know,
about
because if
Christianity-
you know you're doing something wrong and you just don't care, I mean, you can ask for forgiveness after, but I don't know. Obviously, like, none of us are Bible thumpers and none of us have followed things to like the dot for whatever
No, yeah,
religion
of
we
course.
believe in.
Yeah. But mostly my question was legally. Should a 16-year-old be able to have sexual
I
relations with
honestly
someone
don't
that's
think the state should get involved with things like
I agree.
that unless it has to do with like
With
underage, with overage.
I
The
agree
state
with that.
has no place in the private life of citizens.
I agree with that completely.
It's the same thing with like the argument with the LGBT community. The state should not know, and nobody should tell the state. It's like I'm the guy who thinks that like any applications for like colleges and stuff, they should just not include your race, gender, or sexual orientation.
And,
It should be
okay, so I
illegal
actually
to
have a
include
funny
it,
story.
honestly.
I have a very
It should
funny
just-
story to share.
They should put a number on it. Just, I'm
Yeah.
number 3. Do you want to hire number 3? You'll get to see me
Okay.
once you hire me.
Yeah.
Okay,
no,
well, here's
like,
the-
the
I
thing
have a-
is- well, wait,
I have a
Pope,
really
just-
okay.
I will say, because this links back to when I mentioned affirmative action earlier, because I did want to speak about this, because it in itself is something that is not determining based on merit, but based on race. If you're basing something on race or something like that, it is inherent bias towards that, certain race or something like that. It is
And I have-
racist.
Yeah.
Well, not
to
just that,
use
but I
affirmative
think
action.
So I have a quick point that I think is very valid.
Oof.
So I identify as a Democrat. I agree with a lot of their policies.
Oh my
and I
god,
agree
you
with
sexually
them. But
identify
no,
as a
I'm not making this political.
Democrat.
I'm not making this political. I'm
Pope
just
came
providing some
out.
context. I'm providing some context. So I identify as that, and so I noticed that there is an association called the Florida High School Democrats Association. Oh, and Dan knows this. And so what I did was I went on the website and I went to apply. I wanted to become a member, and so I filled out the application, and then this happened. I got a
Did they
question
deny
that said,
you?
what do you identify as? A, Mexican. B, they basically listed all of the minorities
Except
and
for
then-
American.
except for except for American. I actually have a screenshot of this. Let me find it. Okay.
everything
No. For a Yukon form, I'm not kidding. There was
But they
there was a
refused to name
gender
anything that
box.
was not like a hot
This-
topic issue.
no,
Democratic.
no,
Like
I'm-
literally, they only and you had to choose an option. It was like you had to choose at least, and they had no option for Mexican or American. Like it was all the minorities.
I'm not kidding. For one of the things at UConn, when we went into school the first time, we had to fill out like there's this training thing where it's like sensitivity training to go into the college. So it's like a class, and you like go through racism bad, sexism bad. But one of the drop downs, and it was all over the subreddit, and everyone was making fun of it. And it was probably either someone being a smartass or someone made an actual legitimate mistake. But it was choose your gender, and it was female, non-binary, or other. And
That's exactly.
I was
oh my God.
laughing so hard, and I was
Can
like,
I blame you though?
and I was like, oh my god, I'm another. Wow,
Oh my
I
God.
never expected that I would be other.
Explain the hierarchy.
No, but I guess
Okay, and you
I guess
wanna-
that
okay,
means
here's the
I'm
other thing.
sheltered,
The
because-
structure of the Florida high school Democrats is very interesting. They have a bylaws law, which like basically explains all the rules, and part of that is that they force 2 chairs.
he died. Bye, Pope. Where'd you go? Pope, you alright?
What?
2 chair.
Oh god.
Okay, Pope died.
The Clintons took him out.
So while he's
No, I meant Discord crashed.
here he
Can I
is.
go on with my story?
Discord's trying to stop you before you offend their
okay,
liberal
so ba-
feelings.
So basically, the bylaws were that the statewide chair, there's got to be 2 statewide chairs. One has to be a woman, and one has to be a man.
Yes, that's.
And I'm like, okay, I understand that it's important to have diversity, but you never force it upon anybody. You don't force diversity.
Well, I mean, even if you look at like my class, my graduating class, there were like 7 scholarships for engineering that were women only, and there was like 1 scholarship that was for everyone. And it's like, I fully understand that the point is that they're trying to like pull up people in underrepresented groups, but it still
No, yeah.
leaves a sour
But-
taste in people's
yeah.
mouths.
And the way you take up minorities is you educate them and you give them what the lucky people have. You give them that, and then they slowly make their way to becoming that. That's how you do it.
But there was something I was gonna bring. Oh, one of my favorite things. So at UConn there is the it's what is it called? Oh, the Young Socialist Club, which is like they're the people, they put Antifa stickers everywhere, and like they intimidate students, and like they've got some like completely normal people as well, but what I've seen from them has been very shocking and worrying that they allow them to operate like that. But they have their club meetings, right? And one of my favorite thing is I actually asked one of their members. I was in the Republican club, and I actually went to I went to like all the clubs in UConn for a bit to see how they were. All the political clubs. I talked to, Turning
That's
Point
good, that's
USA was not my style at all, but I still talked to them. I talked to
Turning Point USA.
I talked to the Socialist Club,
What a
and
paper, USA.
one of my favorite things about the Socialist Club was some of their rules were just insane. Like, one of their rules was that everyone got to speak. They didn't end the club meeting until everyone that wanted to speak could speak. So they're famous for like having 5-hour-long meetings where people will
The Socialist Club.
they'll go like 8 hours
you wanna come
over.
to my Socialist Club meeting?
They'll keep going over schedule every time, and it's because they think that it's actually offensive if anyone doesn't get the same opportunity to ask a question. So
Well, everybody should get the opportunity, but you don't.
but it's
force
just
them.
it's so crazy to me. It's like they bring it so far, and it's like the point of absolute unconsequential equality. Everyone gets to ask their question, and we're not leaving this spot until we're all done. And it's like,
Yeah,
wow. Like, I kind of respect it because they are really holding to their beliefs. Like,
That's good. It's
some
good
of their
to hold
stuff is really dumb. Like, they were like arguing against us building another power plant on campus, even though our power plants are cleaner than the other ones in Connecticut, so it would actually result in a net reduction of CO2 emissions. Yeah, we have this thing, it's called the chiller plant, and it's this big like natural gas plant, And it's super clean though. It's like one of the cleanest natural gas
Well,
gas
I mean,
states and
Yeah, natural
plants in
gas
the
is
nation.
good, but it'll never be perfect. That's the
But
thing.
the
So-
funny thing is, like, they will get rid of the good in the pursuit for the perfect, and they will actually lobby against things that help people because it's not good enough. And it's like they're just so extreme in their march of progress that they don't allow any improvement. Things need to be
Yeah.
perfect or they'll reject it. It's like the stimulus checks. God damn it. Trump's like, let's give $2,000 to everyone. The Republicans are like, let's give no money to anyone. And the Democrats are like, we'll only give money to people if you follow these 18 other conditions. And I'm like, why don't we just pass all of it and figure it out later? People need money.
People,
And it's
people need
like-
money, exactly.
And it's like, why
Well,
are
yeah,
we making
no,
this?
but they're
Why
trying to
why
sneak
does it
in
have to be
15 other
perfect?
things.
I'd rather
I
them
don't like
give.
Nancy Pelosi at all.
I'd
I'm
rather
sorry,
them-
I'm a Democrat, and I don't like Nancy Pelosi.
I'd rather them pass 3 shitty bills than not pass anything. At
Yeah,
this
for
point,
sure.
it's like people are willing just to not allow a single thing they disagree with. They'll allow everyone to be heard. It's
Alright, so
like,
if you're trying to send out money, just send out the money. Don't tack 50 things on it.
yeah, it's the omnibus bill thing. That's what Congress always does. It's like, okay, we're about to run out of money for the Starving
Let's do
Children's
50 other things
Foundation,
we want to do
and then
hold them
someone
on.
and then someone will be like, yeah, but New York also needs money. Can we also fund New York's subway system in this? And it's like, we aren't going to vote for that. Don't you want to fund the
And
starving
but
children?
can you blame-
And it's
you-
like,
you're right. You gotta understand something about Washington. Is the fact that they don't ever spend time on specific issues. They just move on, and then people are stuck in the background, like, well, this is still an
it's
issue.
such a mess. No, I'll
is
agree with that.
It's
The
hard.
part,
It's
No,
very
I-
hard to actually get bills. To,
Exactly.
well, part of the issue is that Congress vacations for like 90% of the year.
And the controlling party, the majority
I
party
honestly-
control what the Congress votes
I
on.
think here's
So
my.
they should vote on everything, like generally.
I
You should
actually have a
vote on everything.
3-step system in order to make Congress do their job. Step 1, Congress shall be paid the average salary of an American. The
Yes.
average salary of an
That
American.
makes sense.
That
That
is
makes
what they will be
sense.
paid. Step 2, Congress is not allowed to leave their session until they've finished whatever they started the session with. So I don't care if they have to sit in that room and get pizza delivered 48 hours after they've
But what
started
happens with the new-
deliberating
what
on the
happens
bill.
with the new senators? What happens with the new representatives?
I don't care. They're sitting in there and they're figuring something out. If I don't do my job, I don't get paid. Why
No,
can
yeah.
senators do nothing and actively block things? Like, they are getting paid to do nothing. They vote on their own wages. They vote on their own
yeah.
vacation and their own health care. And then they go on vacation half the year. And then the entire country is on fire. And they can't even agree on one thing. And they have a time limit. Are you kidding me? If they don't agree on something within 48 hours?
Duopoly is just dumb.
Wow, why does the president have to sign an executive order to give them another 2 days to negotiate something the entire country needs? Well, what the heck? Well, why? They should have to negotiate. They should be like, if this doesn't get passed within 48 hours, you all lose your pay until it is
Okay,
done.
and here's
That's how it should
here's
go, honestly.
I completely agree, and like I like the Supreme Court. Like the Supreme Court is a very good organization. Like compared to most of the American organizations, the Supreme Court legitimately does good things. Like, yes, they make bad rulings sometimes, but generally they don't. They're not political. They're not. You know what I mean? Like
I
They're
disagree.
not supposed to be.
they're not supposed to be. In general, they do a good
some,
job.
Some are.
Well, the issue
Yeah,
is
of
that
course.
activist judges have become a big thing, and it's hard to avoid because anything that is determined by politics is bound to end up political.
Yeah.
It's...
I like. Okay, in my state, we have a little thing, and on our ballots, we're required to we're required to check a box. Would you like to retain blank as a Supreme Court Justice of Florida? That is not a bad thing because they are not political. They are just they are either you keep them or you don't. Like and there's no question about it. It's just smart.
Yeah, but
like, I like
Pope,
that.
you should know in particular.
Honestly,
Pope, you should know in particular that removing people can be political.
and
Yeah.
honestly, people will use it for political purposes.
No offense, Pope, but
I mean,
removing
guess,
people
just-
can be just as political as electing
Quick
people.
question: when are we planning to go till?
Like we're 10 minutes over schedule. I'm saying 7:15 hard end. So.
All right. Yeah, no, but I did want to say one thing. You reminded me of when you were talking about the Socialist Club and their whole deal about like going by their own like codes of like whatever they have. My English class, right? So my English teacher, she calls on people in the exact order of the privilege hierarchy.
Are you
Do you know
serious?
What the
She
hell?
Oh
does.
my
She didn't say
god.
it. She didn't say it ever. But
Oh.
my friends and I have like graphed out every single time in class that she's called on people, and it is always on the privilege hierarchy.
Man.
I'm called out. I'm called last because I am a white Italian man.
Honestly, one of the crazy things to me in school for me was in high school, there's the rule. Teachers are not allowed to be political. Like, you're not allowed to give your personal political views in the middle of class. But all of my teachers would break that constantly. And, like, I didn't mind too much because I was kind of known as, like, the kid who debated the teachers. And it was fun. They liked me.
Oh,
They didn't get,
God.
like, angry at me.
I like students that actually
But
like.
like some
or
of the
have an interest in.
some of the things that some of my teachers said in the middle of class are just frightening that they're allowed to just like influence the entire class if they want to. And it's like one
that's
of our
why-
teachers was going off. I'm not kidding. One of my teachers was a lobbyist against
What?
private schools. Yeah. So one of my teachers was a lobbyist who went to Washington every few months, and he'd say he's going, and he lobbied against private schools because obviously I went to a public school and they didn't want to lose funding. So the guy is being basically lobbying against private schools. Then he comes to school and he tells us all how it's all evil. And it's like, how is this not a conflict of interest? Are you telling me that the teachers who are educating the next generation can also be a lobbyist and directly influence the next voters of the country,
We should have
complaining?
basic standards.
To be fair.
Teachers
No,
should
not only
be
that,
lobbyists,
but just
generally.
if it
Teachers
was-
should
Lobbyist
never be
is not
lobbyists.
like a formal term.
If he
Lobbying
was-
is like not like a formal
if-
thing. It's just getting politicians to do things.
But if he was lobbying about anything else, but he was lobbying about the school system itself and complaining to the students saying that private schools should be illegal. And it's like,
Personally,
that's so
I-
self-serving. It's like, it's so transparent. It's like, what the heck?
But at the same time, I do. You have to. This is actually a good subject. What is your guys' opinions on private schools?
I
go to a private
honestly,
school.
I think that.
I go to a public school, but I don't think we should stop private schools. But I think we should fund.
Oh,
public
I
schools
seriously support the idea of school vouchers. It's a great idea in my opinion. If you
What do you
go,
mean?
if you have a, so school vouchers, which is a Republican proposal right now, the public schools hate it and a lot of Democrats hate it and teachers really hate it. Public school teachers, which is why my teacher was lobbying against it and constantly talking about it in class. The idea of a school voucher is rather than your tax dollars going to the public school, you can choose to instead give your tax dollars to a private school to pay tuition. So if I had a kid, I could choose to either give my tax dollars to the public school and have my kid go there, or give the tax dollars to the private school, and then the private school would be far less expensive. So the
really like
Republicans say this is good because this allows people to choose what school they want their kid to go to. And if the private school is better at teaching children, then it's giving more children opportunity to go to these better schools. The Democrats don't like it because they think that the public schools will lose funding and that they'll get worse. I'm edging towards the Republican side because I think that if a public school sucks, then I should be able to send my kids somewhere else with the tax dollars.
But that's the problem. Is if that school sucks, we should instead be focusing on funding it more so it gets
All right,
better.
okay. Let me.
But
Exactly.
the reason why public schools suck a lot of the time isn't really an issue of funding, but it's an issue of they're non-competitive and they're held up in bureaucracy. Public
Yeah.
schools, like if you saw some of the things, at my school, I was in charge of the robotics club and a lot of the technology, and I'd see a lot of the budget and stuff, and so many thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars were wasted on stupid contracts and gadgets and things that someone with any technology, someone who was tech savvy would be able to, when like a company comes over and actually we had a company come over and they were showing these systems to the school board and they were trying to sell them, and each of the devices were like, I'm not going to be specific for obvious reasons, but each of the devices were like $5,000. And like, so a few students, including me, were brought in, and they were like, do you guys think this is a good deal? And I was like, no, I think this is a horrible deal. I was like, you could get something that is generic, not locked in, and that students could do a lot more on for like $1,000 each. I know that this is branded educational, but just throwing an educational tag on it shouldn't make the price 5 times more. And the response I got back is I said, the state will not fund generic things even if they're cheaper if they're not labeled as educational. So they pay $4,000 more for each of these devices just because of the government bureaucracy saying it has to be branded educational in order for them to buy it. That's insane.
There should be some sort of flexibility.
That's
laws,
over
because
like
that's the thing.
$60,000 they threw away because of bureaucracy. That's incredibly crazy.
Over time.
In a private school could have just bought whatever they wanted because they don't have that bureaucracy. They could have gotten every student a new MacBook for that price.
Yeah.
Honestly, they should be controlled by not the state laws. They should be controlled. Yeah, I know, but they should be able to be controlled by the county or the local city. Like,
No,
it's
wait, Pope,
autonomous
Pope.
for a reason.
Pope, are we saying local government? Local government good?
Okay.
I support local government, but like I stand. I know, but I stand over my issue that I believe that there are issues that should stand national.
All right, so we will stop this here because we're going over time. Into next week on Saturday, our topic will be local versus federal government because things keep wrapping around. Things keep wrapping around. So I think honestly that
I'm excited for that.
Well, I'll end this off with, we may not have talked too much about the meaning of life, but I hope that everyone watching is able to find their own meaning. And thank you all for watching. Leave a like and subscribe. This has been Voopercast #1, and I think this went a lot better than I expected. So,
Thank you.
see you all next time.
All right.